Hey, everyone, I'm pleased to start the Tiburon Town Council meeting for June 4th. Lee, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Fredericks,
Almost here.
Councilmember Nickvar,
In the flesh.
Councilmember Ryan,
Here.
Vice Mayor Wellner is absent and Mayor Thier.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this moment, I'm going to take comments, public comment on any items that are not on the agenda this evening. Not on the agenda. Do we have anybody that would like to speak?
Seeing none online.
And I'm seeing none in person. We would like to move now to the consent calendar. Is there any public comment on the consent calendar? Yes, please come up.
Hello, Mark Freiberg with the Belvedere Tiburon Landmark Society. I'm here to provide a quick update on the meeting that we had last time with you, and thank you for your thoughtful comments that you offered up and the approach that you charted forward for us involving both noise monitoring at the Art and Garden Center with a third party outside consultant, and also a request that we meet with the collective of neighbors that have the concerns. I want to report first that we've made progress on both fronts. We've got proposal from one consultant. We've reached out to a second consultant. And most importantly, we've made contact with the collective, representatives from the collective, and we have a date for our first discussion together. That date happens to be tomorrow. And I anticipate it'll be a series of discussions, honestly, before we hopefully reach an agreement. But I would like to therefore ask for a continuance on item CC5 rather than adopting specific language tonight. I ask that this be postponed to the next town council meeting to allow us to at least have that first meeting with the neighbors, because we believe there's enough shared overlap of interests that we might be able to come to an agreement on terms that would be, significantly different perhaps than what's reflected here. And so it's a simple continuance to the next town council meeting is all I request on that one item.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more speakers on the consent calendar? Okay, would any member of the town council like to pull any item from the consent calendar?
Should we make a motion to pull this?
Yes, please.
Yes, you may.
Second. Yeah, I'd pull.
I make,
You don't have to make a motion, you just pull it and then we will discuss it. Okay, so that item consent 5 is now pulled. Do I have a motion on consent items 1 through 6? I just want to make a statement on item number 6. I don't want to pull it, but it is great pride that we are recognizing May 2025 as Jewish American Heritage Month in the town of Tiburon. So do I have a motion for items 1 through 4 and 6 on the consent calendar?
So moved.
second,
Okay, can we please take that vote, Lee?
Councilmember Fredericks,
I'm sorry.
Council-
At Fredericks?
yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Nickvar,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellner is absent and Mayor Thier.
Yes. Okay, we are now moving to consent item number 5. Landmarks appeal was pulled. I'm not sure if it was Jack or Alice that pulled it, but I'm going to let y'all decide who goes first.
Can I make a motion that we continue this to the
Sure.
next town council meeting?
Yes. Okay.
Second,
Okay. So Lee, could you please take a roll call vote?
Councilmember Fredericks,
yes.
Councilmember Nickvar,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellner is absent and Mayor Thier.
Yes. Okay, consent item 5 is now continued to the next agenda, which is June 18th. Now I would like to move to the first public hearing, the fiscal year 2025-2026 municipal budget and capital improvement project program. And our town manager is going to give a presentation, after which we will take public comment so that you get the benefit of the presentation before you make your comment.
Word. Oh, here we go.
Are we still in the 3-minute period of general speaking? I couldn't quite hear.
We are on 1 minute this evening, 1 minute public comment. But are you speaking on the budget?
No, this is like the advance, what he was doing.
Perfect. Please come up. So it's on the consent calendar or items not on the agenda?
Okay. Becky Pringle, I just wanted to mention one particular item. I was recently informed by staff that the potential SUP kayak launch was not, at Beach Road in Maine was off the table because of opposition by Belvedere. But I do want the town council to take a closer look at this matter, because this site may be the best and perhaps only option for a downtown water access point. I just wanted to say at this meeting, I understand that repairs to the bridge down there are going to be just repairs, but there might be a bigger set of remodeling activity coming in a couple of years down there. So I'd like to just request that there is a memorandum from the town attorney on what options are available to the town for securing this beach access. And basically that's my thought. I just wanted to put it on the record for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we are going to have the presentation of the budget and capital projects.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. You're actually going to have two presentations. One is for the operating budget first, and then we're going to talk about the CIP budget. We're going to move along pretty quick. And unless I hear anything, I am just going to keep on going. So with that, overall, the proposed operating budget, there are no significant operational changes being proposed in town operations and no additional full-time equivalents or employees, which we call FTEs, being proposed. The budget does include 3.5% COLA or cost of living increase salary adjustments for all represented employees, and also a 3.5% COLA for all unrepresented employees. It also includes a $100,000 increase in the Public Works Parks budget for increased contracted maintenance in parks facilities, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation. Overall, council needs to approve appropriations totaling $25,974,169. This breaks down into four buckets. The biggest being the operating budget, which we're going to spend the vast majority of time talking about this evening. There's a small, what we call capital equipment technology outlay, and then capital improvement, which will be the subject of the second presentation you hear this afternoon. And then we have a debt service payments we need to make related to various undergrounding districts that have been formed over the years. It has no effect really on the operating budget of the town. So when we factor out the capital improvement program and the debt service payments, we're left with what we call operating budget. This year, we're proposing revenues about 18,271,000 and some change, and expenditures of 18,251,910, which leaves us with a very small operating surplus of just about $20,000. Those two arrows on either side point down to what, when we look more closely at what we call general fund revenues and expenditures, and you'll see that same surplus is there if you compare the $14.5 million worth of revenue versus the slightly less amount of $14.5 million of general fund expenditures. First, we're going to talk about what we call general fund revenues. And general fund revenues are broken down into about 9 categories in our budget. This table or this slide shows you those 9 categories, the proposed amount of revenue for each category, and the amount that category is increasing over the prior year's adopted budget. In the next few slides, we're going to talk specifically about some specific sources of revenue, but as you can see, property taxes is as always the biggest single source of revenue we have. When we look at that same set of categories broken down into a pie chart, this shows you that same information again, and this clearly shows that property taxes is the biggest chunk of money we receive, and also there's other taxes, which is primarily sales tax and transient occupancy tax, which we will have slides on in a bit. So when we look specifically at some of our sources of revenue, this is a chart that shows the historical amount we've collected from secured property tax, and you can see it's not only our biggest source of revenue, but one of our most reliable in terms of the growth rate over the years, typically growing from about 3.5% to 4% a year. So relatively easy to predict. We get a relatively accurate estimate from the county every year on this. When we're talking about property taxes, though, it's important to remember, and a lot of folks don't understand this, that the amount of property tax you pay to the county, the town only receives 7.7% of that. So for every $100 of property tax collected, the town receives $7.70. And this chart shows you how the rest of the pie, or the donut in this case, is broken up. Another important source of revenue that is tied to property tax, but is not property tax, is called property tax in lieu, and the VLF is vehicle license fees. Many years ago, the state stopped letting towns collect vehicle license fees and instead give us property tax in lieu of it. And it, again, the growth rate is very similar to property tax. Some sources of revenue that aren't so easy to predict. Here's a good one, transient occupancy tax. This is the 10% tax we charge on the 2 hotels in Tiburon, and you can see it's varied over the years, suffering a significant dip during COVID, then recovering, but then going down a little bit. This one's a little bit more difficult to predict. We're always conservative when we're looking forward for a year, so we are essentially projecting what we estimate that we will be receiving this year. Sales tax is another one that varies a fair amount. You can see it was relatively flat for many years. It took a dip during COVID, but then, sort of in a linear line over 3 fiscal years, went up pretty significantly. This was due to 2 things. 1, coming out of COVID, and 2, in this time period, the town experienced a number of openings of significant restaurants that were being renovated during COVID. What we're seeing now, though, we believe, is a flattening of this. And again, projecting a year forward, we are not proposing a real significant increase in sales tax over the current year's amount. Again, a little bit of note on sales tax. The statewide base rate for sales tax is 7.25%. Of that 7.25%, the town gets one of those percent, essentially. However, like most counties, the county of Marin has enacted several sales tax measures, which brings the Marin County base rate to 8.25%. And this is a chart showing depicting all the towns and cities in Marin, and you'll see that various towns and cities have also added sales tax at various rates, leaving Tiburon, Belvedere, and Ross as the only 3 cities and towns that the sales tax is actually at the county base rate. Another source of revenue that's important to us, but somewhat hard to understand, is education revenue augmentation funds, or more accurately described as excess education revenue augmentation funds. Many years ago, the state did a tax shift where they took tax money from the towns and cities and transferred it to the school districts. Marin County is one of only 3 or 4 counties in the entire state that collects what's called excess ERAF in this formula, and that excess amount is returned to the towns and cities in Marin County. So it's a significant amount of revenue for us, difficult to predict, and you see it sort of goes up and down a bit. So we're fairly conservative when we're projecting revenue in this category as well. Building permit revenue is another one that doesn't follow a linear line. And you can see over the years, it's gone up and down. And again, during COVID, we saw a significant increase in building permits, which dropped off a bit, but now it seems to be slowly increasing again. So we are projecting a slight increase in building permit revenue. That's the last slide on revenue. I'm going to switch over to the operating expenditure side now. A couple of notes that our operating expenditures of 18.25 million includes pass-through to the Belvedere Tiburon Library Agency of about $2.5 million, which is a significant increase over the prior year. To make it a little bit more town-specific, the remainder of this presentation focused on expenditures is going to factor out that library pass-through, leaving us with about $15,694,910 of operating expenditures, which is about a 7.25% increase over the prior year, representing about $1.13 million. When we look at those operating expenditures, the single biggest increase we're seeing, or category-wise, which is not unusual, is in total salary and wage to employee benefits. As a category, this is increasing by $711,000 or 8.6%. As a reminder to everyone, the town has 43 full-time employees. 15 of those are represented by the Tiburon Police Officers Association. 7 are represented by SEIU, and we have 21 employees who are unrepresented. As I mentioned earlier, the draft budget includes funding for the represented employees' salaries and benefits based on the contracts that the council approved last year, and 3.5% COLA increases plus appropriate step and merit increases for unrepresented employees who are not at the top of their salary range. The benefits portion of this also includes a $160,000 increase in what we call the CalPERS unfunded accrued liability payment. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the presentation. This represents a 16.1% increase. When we look at operating expenditures in categories, this is the way it looks in a pie chart. So again, salaries and wages plus employee benefits represents about 57%, just over 57% of the operating expenditures, with a category called supplies and services representing the next biggest pie. And then we've got two smaller chunks, which is capital outlay expense. And then we also charge depreciation to our departments to save money for purchasing equipment and technology in future years. And that's the depreciation expense you see in the top. Supplies and services is a little opaque, so we've created a slide that takes that supplies and services number and breaks it down into categories in our financial system. So you can see how that supplies and services line breaks out, noting that the single biggest chunk of the, or close to the single biggest chunk of the pie, is contractual services. If we look at that same number, operating expenditures broken down by department, this is what it looks like on a pie chart. Police department representing the biggest chunk, and all the other departments are relatively similar sized. We're going to spend just a little bit of time on each department summarizing the changes from the prior year. The first department is the town administration department, and this is the org chart for that department. A little bit of change this year. In past years, we've had a director of administrative services that oversaw finance, accounting, human resources. We've been operating, this slide represents the way we've been operating essentially for the past year and a half, where we've sort of phased out the director position, creating two division manager positions, the finance manager and the human resources manager, each having an employee underneath them. It's the same number of FTEs as has always been in the budget, just reclassifying and reorganizing a bit, which actually saves us a bit of money. When we look at the town administration department, it's actually made up of 4 divisions: the administration division, legal services, town hall, and legislative support. And this is how the money is distributed across the department and divisions. When we look at the department as a whole, the overall increase is 4.3% or $140,000. The significant factors affecting the budget this year were salaries. Actually, salaries slightly decreased due to the department organizational change that I mentioned earlier. Employee benefits increased, contractual services increased, legal expense increased a little bit, and IT support has increased a little bit. Switching to the community development department, again, there's actually no proposed change in the organizational structure, same number of FTEs. I will note that the sustainability coordinator position that's listed there is a contract position we share with Mill Valley, so it's not considered an FTE, but it is sort of nested in the community development department. The department is made up of 3 divisions: planning and design, building inspection, and long-range planning. The long-range planning is typically used for funding contractual services related to planning work or consultant work related to different planning efforts. In this case, it'll be mostly related to our housing, the ongoing housing program that we're operating under. Significant factors in this department's change, or first of all, we are proposing a 9.4% increase, about $170,000. Major changes are mostly salary and benefit increases. The contractual service increase of $90,000 is that advanced planning that I mentioned earlier. And there's the increases are offset by a decrease in capital outlay of $55,000. In this current year, we purchased a vehicle for the department, and next year we will not be, so that's that reduction. Switching to the police department, no change in the number of FTEs. However, 2 things I will note. You will see a police administrative service coordinator position. That was formerly a police service aide position, and council at their last meeting approved a side letter with the union to effectuate this change for the rest of the current fiscal year. In next fiscal year, we're proposing to formalize that by reclassifying that position permanently. And then I will also note on the bottom right, there's 3 sergeants and 1 detective. That should be more accurately described as a detective sergeant. Again, in this current year, we resurrected a special assignment for a sergeant called detective. We're pleased with the results of that, and we are planning to continue that into the next fiscal year.
Greg, can I just make a quick comment that I
course.
wanted to, I think, thank you and Chief Gene for continuing to help improve safety on the Tiburon Peninsula. And I'm excited about, seeing what this detective, this newer, or I guess we're bringing it back, right? Bringing back the detective role can continue to do. I know we've already had an incredibly positive impact so far. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. When we look at the department, it's actually made up two divisions. The overwhelmingly big one is the actual police department itself, and we have a small division that supports the police facility itself, or the police building. Again, when we look at the summary of what's driving the changes this year, the overall increase is about $305,000, representing a 5.91% increase. Salary and benefits make up the vast majority of that. I'll just reiterate, the police service aide position reclassified to police administrative service coordinator, and the sergeant detective special assignment to continue in FY26. Switching to Public Works, no proposed changes to the structure or number of FTEs in Public Works. When we look at the Public Works Department, it's actually made up of 6 divisions. The administration, streets, and parks by far being the biggest ones. We also have a division devoted to supporting the courtyard as a facility, and we have smaller divisions related to streetlight and signal maintenance, as well as the Cypress Hollow District, which is a special district. So there are separate budgets and sub-budgets sort of in our big budget for each one of these divisions. Looking at the overall increase there, it's about $332,000 or 11.5%. Major changes, again, salary and benefits make up the vast majority. The other single biggest line item increase will be in parks contract maintenance of $100,000, representing a 75% increase over the current level. The focus areas for that contract work will be Belveron Mini Park, Bel Air Play Area, Cypress Hollow, Blackie's Pasture frontage landscaping, Lyford parking lot landscaping, Tiburon Police Department frontage landscaping, as well as Tether Park. The last department is actually called non-departmental, which is interesting. So it's actually made up of 4 divisions, and this is where I revert back to having the library included. So you'll see in the bottom left, this is where the library pass-through resides. It's the single biggest element of the non-departmental budget. The other one is the insurances and intergovernmental division. This is where we pay for our workers' compensation, property and liability insurance, retiree medical benefits, as well as all the contributions we make for the dozen or so JPAs that we are members of. Driving the increase of $139,000 or 8.3% this year is a significant increase in and particularly property liability insurance. It's a 25% increase, or about $123,000. There are a number of JPAs in this budget, most of which have relatively small increases. So those increases, however, are being offset by a $50,000 decrease in the contribution to the Tiburon Peninsula Traffic Relief JPA, or the Yellow Bus Program. And another significant change in this budget is this is the first year where we are proposing to pay for 50% of our retiree medical expenses from the OPEB trust fund, which we're going to talk about in just a second. This annual cost the total cost is about $168,000, which in prior years we've paid 100% with general fund revenue. So this year we're proposing to pay for half of that out of the trust fund that was established by the town back in 2017, I believe. So switching gears to long-term liabilities, which OPEB that I just mentioned is one of those. This is we call OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. And for the town, this is paying for what we call retiree medical benefits. And that annual cost is about $168,000. Several years ago, around 2016 or 17, the town established a trust fund and made contributions to it over a period of years. And the liability associated with this benefit is recalculated every 2 years. So the last time we had an actuarial calculation, it pegged that liability at about $3.45 million. The net assets in the OPEB trust currently, at the end of April, were about $3.589 million, meaning that, and I've got a mistake here in terms of the number, that should be about a $60,000 differential or surplus as opposed to a $600,000 surplus. And it represents about 103. So when we look at the liability and the amount that's funded, we're actually over 100% funded. And that's driving my proposal to start using the trust fund to actually make the payments that the liability that it's meant to cover. The other long-term liability we have is related to our pension program with CalPERS. This one's a little bit more complicated. So the CalPERS accrued liability, last time it was measured, was about $46.5 million. We currently, or the time the measurement was taken, we currently have about $32.7 million essentially on account with CalPERS, leaving a liability or an unfunded liability of $13.75 million. The town also established a trust fund for this liability as well. And as of April 30th, that trust fund had about $1.865 million. So when you subtract that off of the liability, we end up with a net UAL of about $11.9 million, leaving us about 74.39% funded, or the funded ratio. When you look across the state, this puts us above average, but not dramatically so. So we're probably in the same boat as the vast majority of towns and cities in California at this point in terms of a funded ratio. This is a big number, and this slide shows that. So this annual payment we need to make to CalPERS to continue to pay off this unfunded liability is over $1 million this year. And it's increasing $158,491 or 16.8% from the prior year in FY25. And you can see from this slide that the FY25 increase over FY24 was almost a 22% increase. So this is a big number for the town, and the projections moving forward, fiscal year 27 through 30, I would take with a large grain of salt. These get recalculated each year by CalPERS, and it can change dramatically depending on the rate of return that CalPERS earns on how they invest all of our funds. So the only number we know for sure is the one that's square in red, and that's the payment we're going to need to make next year. This slide probably is maybe more appropriate for the next presentation, which is CIP, and we're happy to bring it back up during that conversation. This just shows you a history of the town's fund reserves over a number of years. The bottom line are restricted fund reserves. The middle line, the light blue, are what we call general fund reserves that are unrestricted. And then the green line on top is simply the combined total of both of those. We'll talk a little bit about it in the CIP, but you'll see in the proposal for the coming year is to have a significant decrease in reserves, and this is largely due to the capital improvement program that you're going to hear about in just a few minutes. It represents about just under a $5 million drop in reserves. Now, this assumes a lot of things. This assumes first that every single dollar that's budgeted for CIP actually gets spent. And in terms of the estimate for the end of this year, it's very likely that that number will increase slightly once we close the books on this fiscal year. But this just does show you kind of how the reserve balance has fluctuated over the years. And that is the fastest budget presentation I have ever given in the town of Tiburon.
Thank you very much.
And
Okay.
if there are any questions on the operating budget, happy to take them now. If not, we're going to switch gears and switch over to the capital improvement program.
Okay. Let's do that.
All right, so Lee, just as we're switching to the separate PowerPoint, I'll just say a couple of things. One is, we're going to focus a little bit, and particularly at the end of this, on the parks related items. I know we've received some public comment concerned about the amount that we're budgeting. I would simply say and remind everybody that the budget is a snapshot in time, and in proposing what we proposed, it was based on what we know now. And essentially, because a lot of specific direction or decisions haven't been made by council on specific parks amenities at this point, the staff is focused on proposing projects that focus on maintenance of existing facilities and some improvements that were outlined in the Parks Master Plan. I would remind everybody that the town council routinely does, can, and should do budget amendments throughout the fiscal year as more information is gathered and as decisions are made by council during the year. With that, I'm going to turn the program over to Patrick Christlake, the Division Manager for Public Works Operations, and David Ishu, the Division Manager for Public Works Engineering.
Good evening, everyone, and going to get started here with our capital improvement program presentation. We're very excited to share all these projects with you, and we'll move fairly quickly through everything. We're going to go through a couple of categories of recently completed and ongoing projects and what we have proposed for the next fiscal year. I'm going to start it off, and then when we get over to the parks projects, I'm going to hand it over to David. Many of these projects you're familiar with. I won't necessarily list them all, but there were some big milestones, especially the Richardson Bay pond site restoration that was completed this year, Parks Master Plan, along with ongoing pavement and storm drain rehabilitation and maintenance projects. Ongoing projects of Tiburon Boulevard traffic study, the broadband fiber network design, Main Street seawall temporary repairs design, and ongoing open space vegetation management work. So for the fiscal year 26 capital improvement program, we've broken our projects into several categories, and you'll be able to see this in the PDF document that contains all of the project information. We have street improvement projects at around 2.9 million, and just at the last council meeting, the Paradise Drive rehabilitation project was approved and awarded for around 2.1 million. We've proposed about $500,000 in drainage improvement projects, and those are storm drain lining, storm drain replacements, and other improvements around town to our infrastructure. Community and miscellaneous is a pretty large category, and I'll get into that in some more detail when we go through the project lists, and it's about 2.9 million. That includes projects in our parks, projects improving our facilities, and other things like that. And what we've done this year that's a little bit different is we've shown the percentage, or at least the amount of projects that are grant funded, and essentially kind of summarizing all the different funding sources that make up the $6.475 million worth of projects, with 1.6 million being grant funded, and most of that is due to the Blackie's Beach Restoration Project. So one thing I'll point out here as we go through the next slides on the various categories of projects, the projects that are shaded indicate, or the rows that are shaded indicate one project. So a couple of our projects, most specifically the pavement restoration or pavement rehabilitation projects, have multiple funding sources. So for example, the Paradise Drive pavement rehab project has 5 different, maybe an error, it's 4, I'm sorry. 4 different paving funding sources. So there are a handful of annual programs that fall under the street improvement projects category. For example, the bike and pedestrian improvements. That's a program every year where we make improvements to steps, lanes, and paths, other pedestrian and bike facilities, kind of a catch-all, and those numbers do increase based upon what project demands we have. And one other one that I'll just mention that's notable, that's new, or fairly new, is the Kleinert Way Circulation Improvements Project. That is something that David and I are working on getting grant funding for. I think we've successfully gotten grant funding for most of the construction expenses, which we will propose next year. And this is to improve Kleinert Way, which is a pretty significant connector in between Ned's Way and Reed School, the police department. There's a lot of activity on that street, and it really lacks a lot of the basic functions now to make it a complete street, like sidewalks, crosswalks, and other safety elements. The next category is drainage improvement projects. I'll go through this pretty quickly. Right now, we actually, I think last meeting, we awarded a storm drain rehabilitation project. That's to replace some aging lines over in the Bel Air neighborhood. While that project's going on, we'll also be starting the design of subsequent projects for the next year. So we're always designing next year's projects. And then David's working on a storm drain trash capture device installation that's proposed for the downtown area. And I believe that project is going to be mostly grant funded, if not all, when it comes to fruition in the next year or two. And now we're getting to the category that there's a lot of projects in these. We'll spend most of our time talking about the parks projects, but most of these projects here you'll see in community and miscellaneous. It's maybe hidden there, but there's a couple different categories. This slide covers building and facilities. So as Greg mentioned, a lot of it focuses on maintenance and repairs to facilities that we have, not necessarily building anything new. It's just keeping what we have maintained. And let me just go back real quick. One thing that I will point out here, and it also comes up in the parks facility or parks specific projects, but around this property, and we will be doing wayfinding signage basically to really help folks find the library, town hall, and really maximize the use of this campus. Then the community and miscellaneous projects, we have the broadband fiber network infrastructure design that David's been working on, that's still going, and the Tiburon Boulevard traffic study that David's been working on. I think that'll wrap up here in the next couple months. And again, I'll repeat this, that the Parks Master Plan effort was completed, and it identified a host of improvements across a variety of categories, priority levels, and expenses. The CIP as it is now includes $2.5 million in improvements across 11 projects. And the addition to this list that's not on the capital improvement program but is being worked on was the direction from Town Council for staff to proceed with an RFP for future development of the RBSD pond site. This is the list of park-specific projects, and I'll leave the slide up here for a moment for everybody to take a look. Some of them consist of maintenance to existing facilities, and some are some new initiatives that have come through from the Parks Master Plan. Notable projects are comprehensive wayfinding sign program in the parks and open space. We've got some work out on the ORT. We're looking especially at the ORT for some circulation and safety improvements that we're going to be undertaking. Some maintenance to our steps, lanes, and paths. Again, ongoing open space vegetation management and fire road maintenance. The Blackie's Beach Restoration Project. Elephant Rock structural analysis update. We're going to be taking a look at Elephant Rock. We looked at it a couple years ago, and it's time to take a look at it again to check in and make sure that everything there is functioning as it should, and whether or not we need to take some action in the next couple of years. Be doing some work to a gazebo out near McKegney Green, and we also have about $200,000 in there for park amenities and improvements, and David's going to talk about that a little bit more in a moment. Let's see. So this is an overview of all of the funding for the capital improvement program and all the various sources. Some of them are internal sources and some of them are external sources. In other words, we get money from the state of California and some other places to fund our primarily streets projects. We have some grants in there, and we also utilize general fund to fund a lot of our projects that focus on our infrastructure. So I'll go back to the parks project slide for a moment, and David has a couple of comments just for some more background information.
Thank you, Patrick. That was excellent. Town council and members of the public here. I just want to remind you that at the March 19th Town Council meeting, there were 19 items that Town Council directed staff to move forward with, which were the low-lying fruit. All of those 19 items are included in different various projects within the list of 11 in here. The $200,000, we kind of call it the catch-all CIP project, will help fund the architects for Richardson Bay Sanitary District and any future design work that's needed for the mini parks. Town Council also at the March 19th meeting did direct the post subcommittee for the lineal park, Commissioner Judge and Moon, to come back at a future meeting and discuss what the priorities are and what they would like to do. And that happened in May. And the council direction at that meeting was to work on an RFP and go out and advertise that and come back to town, work with Post and come back to town council to move forward with a contract to develop that site. At that same March meeting, town council also asked for the mini park subcommittee to come back at a future meeting to discuss what their findings were from their surveys and their symposium that they had at the library. So I think the next step now for at least the 3 mini parks would be the post subcommission that is Chair Holmbrook and Commissioner Burr to come back to town council with an action item as requested from town council with what they would like to see town council to recommend moving forward for staff. And that 200,000 we believe, will get us at least started on future design, at least for the mini parks that we have, 3 mini parks in Zimlinski Park. So all 19 items that town council directed staff to move forward with will be covered in fiscal year FY or fiscal year 26.
Thank you, David. That is really incredible to see the ball moving forward on that. So thank you and everyone else for continuing that great work.
Okay, is that the end of the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And I would just note for council, this is not an action item. This is an information item for council to provide feedback to staff, and we'll be returning to council on June 18th for adoption of the budget.
Okay,
and CIP.
could you turn the lights back up?
Of course.
Great.
And I forgot, thank you, Patrick, too. I didn't mean to leave you off the, thank you.
Okay, so I am now at this point going to take public comment, and then I'm going to take comments from my fellow council members back to staff. Do we have comments from the public? Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jenna. I'm a resident here in Tiburon. Thank you very much for that very thorough report. I know there's a lot to juggle when it comes to a town budget, so it was very impressive. That said, I'm a little disappointed in the amount that's been allocated for park amenities, and I really would encourage you to increase that number. It sounds like there's about 200,000 allocated, and that really won't get us very far. I would think after completing a very expensive, almost $400,000 master plan, that we would have something a little more impactful and inspiring kind of outlined in the budget at this point. I mean, it's been 2 years that people have been attending meetings, giving public comments, writing letters, and it just seems like the budget's mostly maintenance stuff, and then some kind of vague money to maybe do some very preliminary work. And I think at this stage, we're ready to actually do real work and make some meaningful changes here in town. I personally have been attending meetings for about 2 years now. I've written countless letters. It's really hard to do this. I am a parent of a young child. I work full time. I just completed my PhD in design and planning. I don't have a lot of time, thank you, but I have made time because I genuinely believe that parks and public space are absolutely critical to the health of individual people and to the health of the community. And I thought I was living in a town where our town leaders felt the same and were really poised to take some action. And I'm just not seeing that kind of spirit in the money that's being allocated in this budget. So I would really encourage you to just increase that number. I wrote a letter and outlined the specific things that I'm personally interested in. But really, I'm just interested in big things happening right now. So thank you so much for all of your work. I know everyone puts in a lot of volunteer hours. and a lot of care and thought into all of this. And I appreciate the opportunity to comment. Thank you.
Thank you so much and congratulations. Okay, who is next? Who would like to speak? Chuck.
Hello, Chuck Hornbrook, Tiburon. Want to thank staff for including all those pieces, and I understand that, yes, things will be added potentially at a later point. I'd like to just providing some historical reference for everybody. Last year's budget, we had a nice item for $300,000 for EV chargers next door. That didn't get put in, but it was in the budget originally, showing intent and excitement about potentially putting electric vehicle chargers. That's a great idea. We chose not to do that though, which is okay, but it was showing intent. About 10 years ago, there was a budget item that was listed for a SUP launch that Citizen Pringle just brought up, and I'm glad she mentioned that. Why not just add that? That was one of the top priorities. In fact, it was the top priority for the parks plan, but yet we didn't just budget it in there. It'd be about 150,000 probably, I think was the number what they used back 10 years ago. We'd have to do a little look on that, but it'd be great to put that as a holding item. Again, budgets show intent. And I think you've heard from the community and the people who have come to my meeting, or our commission's meetings as well, your meetings as well, as have met with you all, that there's just a desire for intent. New playgrounds will cost about $500,000 to $1 million. It's going to take some time to do all those pieces, but putting it in the budget so we can plan for it. I'm great that the Blackie's Pasture Restoration Plan is there, but that's an entire pass-through. It's 1.1 million. It's 60% of that entire budget that was mentioned. So it's not really the town or showing intent so that philanthropic activity can fill the gap. I think that would just be great. So that would just show leadership. And I think you guys have heard that from a number of citizens about leadership. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Anyone online?
I do have members of the public online.
You.
We'll start with Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah Reed. You probably recognize my voice from a few other council meetings I've been at. I am one of the fellow moms who is very interested in making Tiburon a more family friendly for all generations place to be. I was going to start with thank yous, but honestly, I think the time for thank yous and platitudes is over. Like, this is shocking to me. If this were the private sector, like every single person would be fired, including myself for having contributed to this joke. I'm sorry. Like, I cannot believe this. Strawberry Rec replaced or tore down, put in pickleball courts, and finished an RFP in like 3 months. I've been coming to these meetings for 2 years, and you have $200,000, 10x the cost of a gazebo to look at every playground in the town. Like 2 years later, I'm sorry, like if you're just not gonna do anything, just tell us. $200,000 is literally less than the moms, not all of you professionals and people who've been rightfully voted in, the mom's time and all these nonsense surveys and community meetings. It's all nonsense if you're not going to do any of it. Our time is worth more than $200,000. 2 years later, like, if you don't want our involvement, please tell us. If you're not going to make parks safe for children and grandparents, just tell us, please. I'm sorry, like, this is beyond disappointing. Put in a SUP. The people have spoken. Put in a SUP launch. Put in volleyball courts. Like, I don't know what the process was in Mill Valley, but there's volleyball courts going up there. That didn't seem like it was this hard. So please be honest with us citizens and voters. If you're not really going to make it family friendly, please just tell us. Thank you.
Okay, next.
Next is Beth.
Hi, my name is Beth. Honestly, I'm at a loss of words. I mean, at least Alice, you're straight up that you don't care about families and kids in the area. Holly, Jack, Isaac, John, I have heard from you. We didn't spend all the money on the open preserve. We had leftover funds. You canceled the EV chargers. Where'd that money go? It's a playground everywhere in the world. I was just in Hawaii. The last time I was in Hawaii a year ago, that playground was updated. Everywhere in Southern Marin, updating playgrounds. I've sent you those lists. Why is a playground so hard to update? At this point, the town should be sued by someone whose child gets hurt on those playgrounds. They are 15 years and more. They have open gaps in them. They have rust. They have nails. There are dogs that are about to maul kids because there are no fences. This is just complete blasphemy that at this point, when we have followed every step of the process in this town, that it is just a vague placeholder for bike paths and improvements, which by the way was on this annual budget last year. I was there and I haven't seen any bike path and walking improvements. And by the way, my frustration is not at the public staff. This is at town council. You all have promised us that teens and kids and families matter, and there is data backing it up. And we are ready for results. And I do appreciate that the lineal park was added in that slide, but that is still not in the budget. Until we see things on a budget, we're not going to believe it. Thank you.
Next is Nicole.
I am on video, but I'm happy to one person. Nicole Voss.
Yes, please, if you're here, you can
This is
speak
easier
first.
here. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Voss. I'm a resident of Tiburon. And we are so excited to be here for the June 4th meeting on the budget. I will say that we are disappointed in how many dollars were allocated to Parks and Rec after this 2-year master plan. I think maybe 200,000 is a good deposit on a playground. I'm also not seeing like the SUP launch that we talked about, a place for kayaks to be launched, and pool access. I haven't seen like a lot of progress there. And that's something I'm really interested in and have ideas about when you're ready to talk about it. This is something it's summertime. We're looking around for where we can bring our children to go learn how to swim and lessons. And we're not seeing a lot of movement in Tiburon. I think Beth and Sarah all mentioned there are other communities in Marin that are moving a little bit faster. That's something we're interested. I recently went to Sea Ranch. There are 3 recreation centers within a 10-mile span that have pickleball, tennis, pools, just something that we can consider. Thank you.
Next is Linda.
Hi, my name is Linda, and I just wanted to, say that at the last meeting, they kind of talked about iterating a little bit, and sort of doing maybe like sand volleyball first and then the, maybe adding things down the road. And I just wanted to kind of share my thought that, the whole is better than the sum of its parts in this case. And that I think that, getting it all done together at once as a community gathering spot, a multi-generational, accessible place for families and the community to gather would be great. And I echo, the moms who want to see some things done for the playgrounds as well. So thank you so much. And wanted to let you know the basketball petition passed 500 signatures, and it's picked up speed since our last conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next is Kim.
Oh. Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Hi. Yeah. Kim Liddell. I'm a resident across from Black Keys Pasture. I just wanted to comment that I really appreciate all of Tiburon's beautiful open space. I'm an avid walker, hiker, but I really am here to advocate for more active recreation for our kids. And this is going to require a greater investment than the 200,000 in the budget. Frankly, I spend more time with my son at parks in Marin City, San Rafael, and Novato than in my own backyard, and I'd much rather not be driving out of town to go to parks. And my son is here, and I'm going to read to him what he asked for me to say to you all. He says, make a basketball court, a bocce court, fun things for kids like tetherball. Just make things for kids outside. So I'll leave you with that. I'm advocating for a greater investment in our town's recreational resources for kids. Thanks.
Next is Emily.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
My name is, I'm a Tiburon resident, and I am joining the chorus asking you to commit more money to our parks and open spaces and public trails now. The updates or addendums to the budget as outlay as possible is great, but we'd really like to urge you, I would deeply implore you to show your action now, show the intent and put the money as where it needs to be. We know how important that parks and open spaces and outdoor activities and places for people to gather are for mental and physical health across generations. We've been talking about playgrounds, but this is true for elders in our community. It is true for people in middle-aged populations, just as it is for children and youth. What you have here in this budget draft is very minimal. We have such community energy and such desire for change in our park system, and it is time to put the money in to not only improve the basic maintenance, which is deeply needed, but also to improve our parks with the amenities and changes like people are calling for. Improve the Bel Air Field, improve Cypress Hollow Park, make it safe again, add the basketball court instead of the sanitation ponds, update our playgrounds, add picnic benches, focus on accessibility and inclusivity. Give us a basic, simple map of the parks and trails and open spaces that our town has. You know the list, you've heard it from us for years now. So much of the community is behind this, so much of the community wants this, and it would be such a definitive improvement to our community. I implore you to put this into the budget now. Thank you.
Next is Lena.
Hi, I'm Lena Godfrey. I'm just here to echo the sentiments that we've heard from lots of other people. Guys, at this point, it would honestly be easier for you guys to make a move than to continue to work against what the masses are requesting and saying. And quite frankly, doing a lot of the legwork to, like get you there with the ideas that have the most traction. Let's just dedicate more money to it on a project by project basis. Do what you need to do to add this in to create some sort of traction and movement sooner rather than later. Nobody wants to wait more years. We've got kids involved in this process. That's awesome. We don't want to teach them that the political process is just a joke and lies and that they shouldn't get involved in it. This is a perfect time to set an example for our next generation too, and to teach them that getting involved and having their voice heard matters. I'm not going to repeat all the things that everybody else has said about what we want and how we can make improvements for the town, but I would implore you to, like everybody else has said so far, reconsider your stance on this. Thank you.
Next is Stuart.
Yeah, hi, this is Stuart Hinley. I'm a Tiburon resident as well. I echo a lot of the sentiments that other people shared. In particular, I would love to see some action on the kayak stop launch, which was, as Chuck pointed out, I believe the #1 amenity identified in the master plan. You have lots of great information and input from the community. It'd be great to see some of this translated into action. I understand that that may be forthcoming, but still putting a line in the sand and working towards something would show great intent and goodwill. So thank you for all you do, and I encourage you to do a bit more for the recs and outdoor activities, and in particular, the kayak and sub access points. Thank you.
Seeing no further comments.
Okay, thank you. So I am now going to close public comment unless there's anyone else in the room that didn't get an opportunity. And I will put this back into the hands of the town council.
I would like to make a
Sure,
comment.
go ahead, please.
You know, I think there's a misunderstanding about how things get done in a town. Master plans generate an action list, but that is not enough to get things done. It isn't even enough to prioritize the projects within the list, because if you just budget it because you have a list, what you're creating is essentially a slush fund. Um, Project planning, I think, has to go forward in the context of the total town needs, of timelines, of the availability of alternate sources of funding. And I am hoping there's someone in staff that is comfortable just describing the process from master plan through actually design and plan of individual projects to build, because each of those require certain processes. We don't just go from list to build tomorrow. We don't just go from list to here's the money. Is there anyone on the staff now who's comfortable just describing the overall process of how we go from concept to build?
Well, I think I'll use as an example the action item that council considered at their last meeting and directed staff to develop and issue an RFP in conjunction with the Post Commission to essentially envision a design for the RBSD pond sites. I mean, if I use one example, I think that can be replicated in other ways. So that was a high priority. The Post Commission formed a subcommittee. They did a lot of research. It was on the master list that came out of the Parks Master Plan. The Post Commission came to council with a specific ask. Council agreed and directed staff to take action. That blueprint could be used for other parks-related items as well. My understanding is there's other subcommittees at the Post Commission that are working on the parks, the mini parks, and perhaps envisioning changes for some of those. What we've been expecting, or what we've been planning for is for those subcommittees to return to council with their reports with specific asks of council. And if council agrees and directs staff to take the next step, that's how it works in a nutshell. It's not.
What is the next step? Is hiring someone to design it?
Well, again, let's go to the example where council took action at their last meeting. They directed staff to develop an RFP, to hire a designer, to provide design services for reimagining the RBSD pond site. So yes, the next step is to put out that RFP. It's a significant design. That particular project is fairly significant in size. So it's important to get it right. We expect proposals from multiple vendors. We will review those proposals with the Post Commission's subcommittee. We will come to council with a recommendation on who to hire. Once that person is hired, they'll commit to their scope of work to provide perhaps some renditions of what could happen there. And once we settle on a particular design, the design will be finalized. And we put that out to bid. It goes back to council for approval, and we build it. I will note, someone referenced the volleyball project in Mill Valley and mentioned that it got done fast. I don't want to put David on the spot, but my understanding from David, he's been with the town of Tiburon for 4 or 5 years, came to us from Mill Valley, 6 years, I guess. Actually worked on that volleyball project in Mill Valley. So I'm not suggesting it's going to take six years to get the RBSD pond sites developed, but things just don't happen. As you said, Councilmember Fredericks, from a list to construction, there are other steps in between.
And thank you, because my concern is not just that the families perceive the council as not getting things done. I'm also concerned that they interpret it as a lack of interest and support for our children and our families. And I'm hoping that having a sense of the process will provide patience and will help them hang on to their passion to get things done.
Okay, did you want to speak, Isaac? Or do you want me to go ahead?
Please.
I just have some preliminary comments. So I think there's two things that I'm hearing from the public and in the letters. One is things aren't moving fast enough. You know, we've approved many things for the playgrounds, for the parks. And then the other frustration is, hey, you didn't earmark enough money in the budget for our vision for the parks. So there's a couple things operating right here, and I don't want anyone to think that the fact that we have to research a project after a project is approved, we have to have like we're doing with the ponds, we have to have a landscape designer or somebody come and tell us how much it's going to cost. Then we approve that, then the project happens. So for some of the items that we have approved, we are in those processes now or will be. And I do believe that a budget is a statement of priorities, you know. I do think we should add more money into the catch-all fund. I don't know if I'll have consensus from my fellow council members, but the reason why is because I believe the 200,000 that is in there now was really looked at in terms of park maintenance solely. And I do think that we should add more money to allow for the vision and the things that we've already approved. So I would be in favor of that. We did receive a comment that someone wanted to put on the agenda and it was too late. I did say that I would read this. It was an item to provide preliminary approval for the quote recommended improvements made by the Parks, Open Space and Trails Commission for the Richardson site. We do have a lot of flexibility here, but I will say, you know, to everyone that's part of parents for public parks, that we have worked with you, we have listened to you, and we are all doing the best that we possibly can up here. And I understand the frustration, but I would say, you know, that we are going as fast as we can. And I think that it is frustrating. It takes time. It's not like, you know, pruning the hedge in your backyard. We do have to have a process where we put out a bid and people respond, and then the project can move forward. And I look forward to completing all of these ideas and the vision. And we're going to work with you and we're going to continue to be your partners. And that's what I think our entire town council has committed to. So I want to reassure you of that. So Isaac, I think you had some comments.
Yeah, I think I want to kind of, I think, I'm not sure how many of the people who did public comment tonight or at our last town council meeting. But I want to reiterate some of the things that I mentioned last town council meeting, because it seems like maybe those, you know, weren't heard. You know, and I'll start with a project that's close to actually happening. David, we on Post in 2017. I think it was before Chuck even moved to Tiburon. We approved the Greenwood Beach restoration project in 20. Thank you, Chuck.
Wait, we're not going to take comment
Thank you.
from the public. Sorry.
It's 2025 now, and we are the closest we've ever been to having that restoration project done. But we greenlit it. There was no opposition. Everybody wanted to get it done. It wasn't funded by the town, so there were some challenges getting funding for it. But these projects sometimes can take a lot of time. We came to town council with a proposal in hand with dollars from Post for beach volleyball. We came to town council with general numbers in hand for a pump track. Those used to get just straight up rejected by town council. So we worked through the process of getting a master plan in place so that we could have a framework for getting things done. We've finally gotten that done. It took us a little longer. We were hoping to get it done in a year and a half. It took us 2 years to get it done. You have the attention of the town council like no one has had before. Okay. This is a unique, I've lived here since 2012. This is the most responsive, most engaged town council that I've seen in the time that I've lived here that is interested in getting these projects done. We need your help getting them done. There's a process to it. I'm still a little new to the process. I haven't been on town council as long as council member Fredericks, but I can see that a lot of these things take patience. They take time. This is not the private sector. This is nothing like the private sector. If anyone ever has the misguided thought that this is going to function in any way like a private sector project, get that out of your head now, because it all takes a lot of time, and we're all volunteers. We're all doing our best here, and we want to get this done. So appreciate the partnership, appreciate the engagement from everyone in the community. I think I speak for the majority of folks on the town council where we want to take the post recommendations and get them done. If we change the budget item from $200,000 to $20 million, that wouldn't necessarily speed anything up. It might make us all feel good because we're kind of putting our money where our mouth is. But we did that for the Martha property, and we used $1 million of it out of the $2 million that we allocated. That went back. If we put $20 million towards parks and we get nothing done, and we don't get proposals, and we don't agree on them and get them to move forward, then what's the point of putting $20 million in the budget? I don't see it. So I think we need to figure out what we want to do, how much it's going to cost, and the money is going to be there. So I think that's the process that seems clear and we want to move forward with.
Okay, I think Jack has some comments.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. And thanks to my fellow council members. So first of all, I apologize to the public to the extent that the process has caused you frustration and that the way the budget is architected is causing you frustration. I definitely appreciate all of your input and how often you have come to speak to us. But I think that, and I'm surprised that sort of that symbol is what you need to be confident that we are supporting these things. I mean, you can email me anytime and I will reply, and I have replied to several of you that I am committed to funding these projects. So, you know, I guess philosophically in terms of the budget, it just doesn't strike me as being the critical thing for the public to get reassurance that we are committed to these things. And I do get the symbolism, and I think it's like, if you want to get wonky about it, it's not crazy to think that we would create a discretionary set aside in, like, for example, in Exhibit 2 on page 3, there's a balance sheet. Like, this could be a balance sheet exercise where we move some money into a discretionary set aside reserve fund that we create. But as Isaac said, I don't necessarily see how that gets anything done quicker or would reassure you that that's better than our word when you email us. So, yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying about getting stuff done. That's what I'm committed to. The balance sheet symbolism is not as important to me as getting stuff done. And so for example, a lot of you talked about the stand-up paddleboard launch site. When Post comes to us with a proposal and we can get a cost estimate on it,
Yep.
We will vote on it and we will amend the budget to include those funds and get that done. That at the next meeting. Like, it won't take 10 meetings, it'll be the next meeting. And that's irrespective of what we do to the budget, that's the way I see it happening. And that's the quickest path to getting us a SUP launch. It doesn't matter what account the funds are sitting in to get things done around here, right? Let's get the proposals in front of us so we can vote on them and move forward. That's what we're waiting for. Thanks.
Okay, Do we have other comments?
Just a follow-up that it's true, it doesn't matter where the funds sit. It matters that we have them, and you can see from our budget that we have them if we have to amend.
Okay.
I mean, we have
so-
$20 million in reserves, right? Like the funds are there.
Okay, so this is not an item that we vote on, but I don't have the votes, as you can see, even if we were to amend it. But I would like to see more go into that fund than the 200,000
What would you
because
like to propose something?
well, I did see some public comment that costed out different projects. I think we could put more in that fund. I think the 200,000 really was intended for park maintenance. So those are just my comments. We're not voting on anything, and this is direction to staff. I will echo some of the other comments I've heard tonight that the way that we normally do budgeting is that a project comes to us and we approve it. It's not already in the budget. And then we amend the budget. But I am in favor of increasing the 200,000. I don't know if any of my colleagues are in favor of that. Given that we have seen some proposals, I know the kayak sup launch is coming back to us. And we approved a lot in our motion on March 19th. So I don't think it's necessarily bad policy to add more into that bucket. But I also, echo my colleagues' comments that just because there's a number there, we're expecting to get the results of the landscape architect design on the ponds, and then we will have a number, and that number can still be approved even if it's not in that $200,000 bucket.
I mean, what about just moving money from our general fund to the park development and ORT discretionary set aside on the balance sheet? Again, it's page 3 of Exhibit 2. Right now, there's $639,000 in it. We could move $500,000 more dollars in there if we want.
Okay, but I don't know if
I don't
that's
know.
the fund where we do our projects out.
I don't like symbolic budgeting. Show me the numbers.
Okay.
I don't hate the idea of doing a symbolic move either, because we can always, it's going to be more, whatever you put in there. It's going to cost way more.
Okay. And what I'm saying is, I don't believe this is a symbolic move at this point. I believe the 200,000 was more for maintenance and that we do have projects on the table. We could increase that fund. I don't think we can take any action tonight. So it's just a thought for us to mull over, and our budget action is on the June 18th. Is that right? The actual action item, Ben?
That's correct, but I
Okay.
think staff would need direction tonight in order to take that action on June 18th. It's hard
Okay.
to have a budget approved on June 18th where you're moving things around at that night. So
So-
the purpose
okay,
of tonight is
so-
to get
Yeah,
direction.
So-
I think we're all hearing the frustration, right?
Okay.
And hopefully everyone has heard that, I think some of us are willing to make it, make a change.
Can I ask one question? So in that fund, where did that money come from and how do we put more money in? Generally,
You're talking about the discretionary set aside?
yes,
And,
please.
and is that
Yeah.
the correct fund?
Well, that's one of the funds we would use to pay for parks infrastructure upgrades. The money has got there by transfers from the general fund, basically. But it's, just to be clear, it's all the same money. It's all discretionary general fund reserves. It's the same color of the money, as they say. So
But it would be earmarked for parks upgrades, even though it is still in part of the general fund.
Yes, and it also could be amended to take it out if it were
Yeah. Yes.
necessary. So
Yeah.
it's symbolic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why
Okay.
don't, maybe it's great. Why don't we put $1 million in there?
I'd do that. I'd be fine with that.
Is no skin off anybody's back?
We don't.
Okay, so we have
optionality.
one fund with 200,000. So then we're adding $1 million to
No,
this
it's not.
other
It's
fund.
not in the
No, it-
operating budget. It's in the balance sheet.
No, I understand that. I understand that.
it's moving dollars in the balance sheet, so it doesn't change.
So
the
you
budget.
want to move to that fund that has over 600,000, you want to move another million? Okay.
500,000 or what?
Are we in agreement? I'm in agreement. The estimates I saw were about 850, so I think a million is
Do you want to
is a
move?
good
you wanna
number.
Make it a million or move? Because we could move 500,000 and then it would be over
Mm-hmm.
$1 million.
$1
The general fund's only $5 million now.
Okay, so let's figure out the number and then we can give that direction to staff as long as we have a majority. So if you were to move the
Oh, I know.
the
Yeah,
500, you would have 1.1 in that fund. Is that correct?
Yeah.
If you were to move
Right.
500.
And if we needed more,
Okay.
we would get more. And if we needed less, we'd move it again.
Okay, so I think we have consensus on the council to move the 500 and that fund will have approximately 1.1 million. Is that correct?
Okay, we
Yeah.
have consensus. I'm abstaining. I
But-
don't agree with this kind of budgeting. I
Okay.
agree with the intent, but I just don't agree with it as a good.
Okay.
And also to be clear, we will still need to approve budget amendments to spend the money.
Yes.
Yes.
When we know how
When we
much
know how
we're
much stuff we're gonna
spending,
spend.
I would support that.
Okay.
Absolutely, but not this.
Okay, and I think I do support this. I think that a budget is a statement of priorities. It's important to make sure that, we put our money where our mouth is in terms of, we've already approved a lot of park improvements, and this will have a bucket from which they can come once we receive the plans.
But there is already a bucket and a priority. How much money does it take to show priority?
Okay.
Because that's what we're budgeting
And
for right now. It's
then-
look at us, we're wonderful, we're making it priority.
Then, because this is not an action item, are the comments from three of us enough? Or how do we proceed?
Yes.
Without taking a
Majority
vote?
direction is all we need.
Perfect.
Sure.
Okay, so I think that is the recommendation. So,
Can I make a comment?
yes, please.
That this does not change any of the process. We still need proposals from Post to move forward on anything beyond what we have moved forward on.
Yes, we
Yes.
have made that
Right. So I
clear.
want to make sure that's completely clear.
Okay,
Process hasn't changed.
okay.
And clarity from staff, if the economy crashes and we can get everything for less money, we can reallocate the residual to other projects.
Of course.
And I do want to, is everyone done with comments? Because I want to make a comment outside of this. Okay. So I do want to just talk about the budget in general. And I want to say how pleased I am that our staff and our town not only has a balanced budget, but we have a surplus. And we also do that by paying down our retirements and all these other unfunded liabilities. And Tiburon is in a very good position financially. That's what allows us to do these improvements. And I do want to thank everyone for that. And then I have something for the Parents for Public Parks, just to put the speed of government into focus, that the ponds, the Richardson Bay sanitation ponds that we're all discussing. I started that project 10 years ago. It took me 10 years to get us to be able to acquire that site, with my council members working very hard. So just, think about that, 10 years. Anyway.
Yeah, let me add to that, actually. The Ponds project was contingent on acquisition of that property. That idea was discussed by council even before Jeff Slavitz back in something like 2003. And
Interesting.
there was discussion about whether it was too early to create a reserve. Obviously, it was.
So was it a 24-year project? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, well, I think we should all be proud of the budget, and I want to thank everyone for their input. We are going to move along. There's a very, very short item, which is A11. I'm going to go to that. And we've been asked to continue A12. So that will be on the next agenda. So A11 is the Main Street closure request. And
Wait, why are we continuing A12?
we received a request from our council member who's not here. who's on the Transportation Committee. Yeah. Yeah. So
Who requested
So-
it?
Don, yeah. So this would be the Main Street closure request. I'm going to take that before the appeal. I believe this is a very fast item. So I don't know, is there a staff report?
Yes, Mayor and council members, this is a Main Street closure request. We've received special event permit from the Caviar Company to hold their caviar crawl on Main Street on Sunday, July 13th from 11 to 5. This event is, it happened last year, and they'd like to do it again this year, and it was very successful last year and had a lot of attendees. And this year they've decided to request a Main Street closure for safety purposes. And this is coming to council tonight in the context of council's previously indicated a desire to limit Main Street closures. And I just want to note, I'm not going to go through the whole list of them because you have it in your staff report, but if this is approved tonight, it's going to raise the number of street closures this year to 8.
Actually, Diwali gave back their street closure, so we are still at 7. And the Parks and Rec closure was for a 50th anniversary, which we don't expect to happen for another 50 years. Yeah. So I'm going to let I believe Petra is here, and I'm going to let her discuss the closure. Petra Higbee is the owner of the Caviar Company here in Tiburon, and we're happy to have you in Tiburon and happy to have you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate everything that y'all do for our town, and I appreciate the opportunity to sit in front of you tonight to tell you about our request. So this would be our 4th annual National Caviar Day Crawl. And so our goal of this event is to build community and to involve all of the businesses. And so what our Caviar Crawl is that we actually give kilos of different species of caviar and different tasting experiences to our neighboring businesses on Lower Main Street and Arc Row. And the goal is to get people, they get like a passport and they go from business to business and go into the business to taste the caviar and to look at the goods. And we actually get really good feedback from our neighboring businesses. Miriam Zelensky from Lazy Jack Press says 2 years in a row now, it's her best sales day of the year. And other businesses are also very happy with it because of the clientele that we bring in. We do sell tickets to this event, and so it does bring up the demographic are people who are looking to shop and spend money. And so last year we sold out at 250 people, and this year we're expecting about 300 people. Last year, the police did come to us and say that we need to request to get the street closed this year. And so that is why we're here today. And also with closing the street, we see a lot of other benefit of being able to engage the entire community and children too. The theme this year is Caviar Cowgirl, if that matters, but to have like little lasso lessons for little kids and different, horseshoe throws and really create this special street closure. We're hoping to turf Lower Main, but also a big part of the goal is to get people up Arc Row. We really are sensitive to that of what happens with closed streets and how it can negatively impact Arc Row. And so you can see in your thing tonight, there's a map. This is an example of the businesses that participated last year. And so far, we just started talking to businesses a week ago, and 10 businesses have already committed to participating. But we do a really good amount on Arc Row and Lower Main Street.
Great. I did have one question. Have you checked in with our Chamber of Commerce, and are they in support of the street closure?
Yes, we have Melanie's full support and the Chamber's support for this.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from council members? I do need to take any public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing none.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the closure.
Second.
Could we please have the roll?
Councilmember Fredericks, Councilmember Nick Bar,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellner is absent, and Mayor Thier.
Yes. And now we are moving on to the appeal. Lee, do you have the sheet?
You want me to review it?
Could you close the door?
Want me to say something about the process that they're gonna do a staff report, then they're gonna. Let me turn the lights down a little bit. I don't know, maybe they can see it. Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor and council members. This is a consideration of an appeal by the neighbors of 4 Owlswood Road of the design review approval of a site plan and architectural review for an application for 4 Owlswood. It was design review and two variances. So on December 17th, we received an application, and on March 20th, we had a public hearing by the Design Review Board. And at the conclusion of this meeting, the board approved the project with an added condition of approval requiring an addition of at least one window facing the street at the right side of the garage that has a minimum sill height of 24 inches and has a minimum area of 10 square feet in order to address some of the safety concerns that were expressed by the neighborhood. On March 20th, 2025, there was an adoption of a resolution. And on March 31st, a timely appeal was filed. On March 29th, the applicant submitted updated plans to us showing the proposed location of the 4 new windows in response to the condition added by the DRB. So just to give you a little bit of an overview, let's see this thing. Never know where. Is this where the pointer is? Oh, here it is. Here it is. Okay. I just wanted to give you a little overview of where you are. This is the subject property in red. It's on a hillside lot on Owlswood. It's located on a private street that's off of Tiburon Boulevard. The 2-story residence has been developed at the front of the property and steps down the hill due to the sloping topography. The parking deck that's existing now was constructed at the same time as the residence and is located on the top of the first floor laundry and utility rooms. The application proposes the construction of a garage within that footprint of the existing parking deck with a small triangular expansion for storage. The proposed design of the garage mimics the architectural character of the existing residence and use of construction materials. The 2 variance requests are for a reduced front setback of 2 feet where 30 is required and an increase to the existing coverage from 20% to 21% where 15% is already permitted. And that is just to show you that some of the conditions are already existing, but additional variances were needed. So the neighborhood context is that a portion of Owlswood that we're talking about now actually has 3 residences, one here and one here, that they all gain access on this small little driveway. The remaining ones that are at a higher elevation come off of another split or fork in the road. There are 3 different zoning districts in that area, R1, RO2, and RPD. And they're located within the vicinity of the subject property, and that results in some of the different development standards that you would see in this area. However, all of the properties in the vicinity, except for this particular property, have garages. The variance and precise plan development amendments have been granted in the vicinity due to hillside constraints, location of easements, and lot configurations. For instance, 6 Owlswood has a 36% lot coverage that was granted, a 9-foot yard setback, a 31% building height. 5 Owlswood is an RPD, precise development plan, and has an amendment to expand a building envelope for construction of a front yard deck. And as you can see here, it's really hard to see this without the lights off. I don't see. Did you move me? You did. Yeah, please. So here you can see some of the driveways going up Owlswood right here. And then the existing condition of 6 Owlswood, where you see the garage right there. This is actually the 4 Owlswood here. And then when you're looking up Owlswood to 5 Owlswood. So as you can see here, this existing western elevation is where the parking deck is. This is the proposed one with the garage and the windows that you see here. This is the existing eastern elevation, and then you'll see that this is the garage over here with the windows. So I'll go through the appeals grounds and the responses by staff. The first appeal ground is that the Design Review Board erred in making the site plan and architectural review finding. One, that that the project provides a safe and reasonable access and will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and general welfare. The appellant states that the proximity of the garage to the private narrow road endangers drivers, bikers, and pedestrians when cars back out from the new garage with visibility impaired by the new structure. The modification required by the Design Review Board to add a window on the side is inadequate to protect public safety. The new structure also limits opportunities for turnarounds on the street and would require other properties to bear the burdens on their property. Staff's response. The subject property is already improved with a parking deck. Can you move that up there? Thank you. With a parking deck in the same location as the proposed garage. There will be no change in how the vehicles enter or exit the driveway once the garage is in place. As I stated earlier, and as you can see here, it's in the same location as the parking deck. And there is not an increase in the number of parking spaces. The construction of the garage at 4 Owlswood will not increase the traffic volume. The proposed garage is replacing an open driveway, which is currently used for parking. There is no change to the roadway. There is no encroachment into the roadway beyond the property line. Finally, there is no requirement that private roads or properties provide public turnaround access. However, the current condition of the road, as well as the traffic volume, is not being increased as a part of this project, and the vehicles can use the existing location for the safe turnaround. Appeal ground 2. The Design Review Board also erred in making the site plan and architectural review finding 2, as the location of the proposed garage blocks protected views. The appellant states several neighbors are deprived of their views from primary living areas by the proposed roof line of the new garage, which rises 4 feet above the existing roof line. The excessive height of the proposed garage is a design choice and not required for the functionality. Staff response. The project was evaluated and found to be consistent with the Hillside Design Guidelines, specifically Goal 3, Principle 7A, which establishes primary views. View protection is more important for the primary living areas of the dwelling. Living room, dining room, family room, great room, kitchen, and decks associated with these rooms than for less actively used areas of the dwelling, such as bedrooms, studies, office, or dens. The Design Review Board determined that the project will not result in a view loss for the adjacent dwellings from the primary living areas. Views from the public street, which was mentioned quite a bit in discussions, is not considered as a primary protected view. And we did show you here, this is going up that section or that fork of Owlswood, and you can see the story poles right here. Appeal ground number 2 further, did I miss? The applicant's property is located at a lower elevation than the adjacent properties, which affords the lots at a higher level elevation and an expanded wider view of San Francisco, Richardson Bay, and Belvedere, Sausalito, and Mount Tamalpais. And as you can see, I'm really having a hard time tonight, aren't I? As you can see right here, this is Owlswood, and this is the entire expansive view that still exists. Appeal ground number 3, that the design review board is also erred in making a site plan and architectural review finding 3. The applicant's home will have excessive bulk and mass when viewed from the east, as the project will add a large plain wall without windows to a 3rd story of the home as viewed from the east. Staff response: to address the concerns related to the building massing and visibility to the street, the design review board added a condition requiring a window be added to the western elevation of the garage with a minimum sill height of 24 inches and a minimum area of 10 square feet. The current condition has a parking lot with a screen wall. Proposing an enclosed garage depicts, as you can see, depicts a wall that is broken up with these windows, and the massing is broken up for the homes being stepped down the hillside. As you can see here, you step down the hillside, the whole mass breaks up, and it is not creating a huge mass, along with the windows that open it up a great deal to the street. Appeal ground number 4, the design review board erred in granting variances for lot coverage and front yard setback. The current residence was developed, as I said before, with the excess lot coverage due to the topographical constraints of the site, the slope, and the limited area in which to develop. The garage is being proposed within the same footprint as the driveway and is located on top of an existing habitable space that is already counted as lot coverage. The only additional lot coverage is approximately 140 square feet for the storage area. The municipal code, furthermore, the municipal code permits up to 600 square feet of garage for lots between 7,500 and 60,000 square feet. The proposed garage is below the allowable square footage, even including the storage area. The site topography, existing footprint of the driveway area, and is in keeping with the other properties on Owlswood who have garages greater than that 500 square feet. As a side note, the adjacent property at 7 Owlswood recently received approval to expand the garage area from 480 to 760 square feet. The reduced front yard setback, reduced setback is a result of the steep topography as well as the location of the easements along the roadway. The garage is approximately 19 feet from the property line, but is reduced to 2 feet due to the existing easements. Existing 2-foot setback was approved when the primary dwelling unit was approved in 2005. A similar variance was granted at 6 Owlswood for a 9-foot side yard setback because of the same site constraints. Appeals ground number 5. The applicant did not submit a survey showing property lines or easements by a surveyor, and the site plan was without a survey data and should not be accepted, and the application is not complete. The application proposed improvements within the existing footprint that was reviewed and approved in 2005. The site plan provided in this application was consistent with the original approval, which incorporated the topographical survey that was prepared by a land surveyor. The site plan also shows the location of all required setbacks, easements, and existing structures. Since their original approval in 2005, there is no record of any lot line adjustments or filing of any new easements. For these reasons, the town determined that a new survey was not required and that all existing conditions were accurately represented. So tonight, you have 4 different recommended actions that are before you. You may, 1, deny the appeal, upholding the approvals made by the design review board, and direct staff to return with an appropriate resolution for consideration of the adoption at the next meeting. 2, grant the appeal denying the application, and direct staff to return with the appropriate resolution for consideration of adoption at the next meeting. 3, partially grant the appeal by making revisions or adding conditions to the Design Review Board's approval, and direct staff to return with the appropriate resolution for consideration and adoption at the next meeting. And alternatively, you may remand this item back to the Design Review Board with specific direction regarding any aspect of the project needing further review and deliberation. The board's decision on remand would again be appealable to the council. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Do we have questions? No questions. Okay. Do you want to bring the lights up? Okay, so the procedure is that the appellant or the appellant's representative will make a presentation no more than 10 minutes and will respond to council questions. Then the applicant or the applicant's representative will also make a presentation of no more than 10 minutes and respond to questions. Those 10 minutes can be divided up by different speakers. And the time that you take answering questions is not part of your 10 minutes. So I'm going to ask the appellant to come up.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Elizabeth Breckus on behalf of the 5 neighbors, 10 individuals, all of whom are negatively affected by the view obstruction and safety problems that this project creates. And I want to say that these neighbors do not oppose the applicants having a garage. The objection is to the design and the location of the garage. They agree that the applicants should have a garage. Could I get the next slide? This garage and storage addition will eliminate a treasured view of Bird Island for the Alon family at 7 Ellswood. From their kitchen, living room, dining room, and exterior dining area, because the applicants have a preference to pitch their garage and storage roof up, shed style, and want 11-foot ceilings in their storage area and garage. Next slide. There were several problems with the Design Review Board hearing, and they justified granting this appeal. The story pools that were put up were wrong. The site plan submitted by the applicants was wrong and incorrectly identified a water line easement on the north side, and the Design Review Board was told that the south side of the site was the only feasible place for a garage, which is not true. Multiple Design Review Board members at the hearing stated that water views are not protected, which is not correct. There was no discussion about the fact that the roof design is directly contrary to the hillside guidelines. And we ask that you keep these facts in mind when you are considering how much deference to give to the Design Review Board. Next slide. This picture shows that the story poles were lower and in air before the Design Review Board hearing. Next slide. The project will result in Larry and Lynn Odlands losing their view of the Belvedere Lagoon. Note, they don't capture a view of the city or lagoon from any other location in their home except for right there. They don't have a panoramic view. So this is really the only view they have, and it's an important view for them. Next slide. Views are protected. Storage is not. The Design Review Board got it wrong when they said water views are not protected. So they essentially used the wrong standard to decide this project. Next slide, please. While attempting to work this out with the applicants, the appellants retained local architect Michael Rex to determine if the garage can be built on the north side of the property. It can. If located on the north side, the appellants can have their garage and storage area. This is the best option because no one's views are impacted, and it improves safety and creates more parking and turnaround spaces so the applicants and visitors are not backing up on Owlswood or using neighbors' properties for their turnaround needs. Next slide. If located on the south side, which is the approved side, there will be a view impact, but it can be dramatically minimized by designing it with a gable roof design. Note the applicant has responded to this by saying the roof only comes down by 1 foot. But because the roof at its highest point is narrow, the view impact is dramatically less and views are significantly preserved from 7 and 5 Owlswood and the public T intersection that this neighborhood enjoys. Next slide. This project was designed inconsistent with the guidelines, and so it isn't unfair to make them comply like other projects have to. Note, here's the language in the guidelines. It says, follow the contour of the hillside, particularly roof forms. Next slide. It is this design that violates the guidelines that is creating such a problem for the neighbors. And while the applicants have argued that they should be allowed to choose the design that they prefer, lots of residents have had to compromise on design choices to fit an addition into an as-built environment. Next slide. The Rex alternative designs, the one he proposed on the north side and the other one on the south side, they both comply with the hillside guidelines. And the Design Review Board did not have these designs to consider when they passed the project. Next slide. Building the garage on the north side makes the project much better for neighbors who live past the applicants because it puts the burden on the neighbors who have to provide their property for turnarounds. And it's better for the applicants because they will get 2 extra vehicle spots with the remaining parking deck staying in its place, and they will have a turnaround area on their own property. Next slide. Building the garage on the south side is problematic because you can see that if the proposed garage is placed in between the 2 cars in this photo, the sight lines are not good on this street. And it is made worse because the applicants regularly have a lot of cars on the street in front of their home, and their plantings are too tall and block sight lines. Next slide. The north side is the best location because it creates no view impacts, improves safety, and improves parking and turnaround opportunities. Next slide. Note the Morrises, the neighbors opposing that location, are not even adjacent to the applicant's lot because there is another lot between the applicants and the Morrises. And lots of trees are on that lot between the 2 properties. And the Morrises' home is in fact 60 feet away from the applicants. Next slide. The variances granted do harm other neighbors, and they are a special privilege. The applicants are the only neighbor who has no room for turnarounds on their property for their numerous cars in the street and for all their deliveries. The project blocks primary views of neighbors. The project is a burden on neighbors, and there is no justification for that because there are other viable alternative designs. And it is not a safe design. Next slide. And having tall plantings on either side of the proposed garage exasperates the safety hazard. The traffic consultant recommended that the curb on either side be painted red and no parking for 20 feet to preserve sightlines. Next slide. The appellants asked the City Council to overturn the design review approval because findings 1, safety, 2, views conflict with the hillside guidelines. And 3, mass and bulk cannot be made. Deny the lot coverage variance for the garage storage area, which incidentally looks more like an office because it has 36-inch sill windows and it proposes hardwood floors in the storage area, as shown on sheet A1.2. And because the south side position worsens the view obstruction and is not an entitlement. Deny the setback variance because the garage, as located, harms neighbors and creates a special circumstance. Require plantings to be trimmed to fence height irrespective of where the garage goes. Now, if the project is placed and allowed on the south side as presently proposed, the applicants should have to come back with either a gable roof design or some other design that they prefer that doesn't take away as many views as this one does. And we request that they restrict the storage space to storage. Michael Rex is available to answer questions, but he has submitted his letter stating that there's no obstacles to these two designs from an engineering standpoint or architectural standpoint. And finally, I'd like to reserve whatever remainder of my time I have for rebuttal. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So do we have any questions right now for the appellant? Any questions? Councilmember Fredericks, please proceed.
Yeah, so clarify something, and I know this is a design travesty to even think of this. I understand that the gable roof was not approved as a concept by the DRB, but what if the lowest part of that garage roof is the part that is nearest the street? If that were the level of the garage roof for the entire garage, would that lessen the impact on the views?
It would. So if it was a flatter roof, it would. It's the fact that it pitches up in the back that is particularly problematic when you're looking down and when you're looking, this way. And so a flatter roof does that. We tried to meet with what we thought that were their needs, and so we were proposing a gable roof. But I should also mention a gable roof wasn't specifically requested at Design Review Board. So what happened between the Design Review Board hearing and now is the appellant wanting to work with the neighbor and hopefully reach compromise, engaged an architect, two projects possibles were explored. One is on the north side that was drawn up by the architect that the appellant hired, and then another alternative on the south side was proposed. Both of those they both comply with the hillside guidelines. What doesn't comply is the applicant's proposal.
And so from looking out there, it sounds for it to comply with the hillside guidelines, it would comply if the taller part were on the street end and it's sloped down. Would that address the view problems also?
It quite possibly might. We've never seen story polls that would look at that, but it is true that, when you have height that's closer to another neighbor, it potentially does. But I really haven't, I think it would certainly help 7 Owlswood. I'm a little less clear without story polls, whether from Odlin's property, it does the same. I just don't know that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did have a question. How many, roughly, if you know this, you might not, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but roughly how many feet higher this garage is than the roof line of the property as we see it from the street?
It's a really good question, and I don't have a great answer. It looks to me like it's three feet or so, maybe 4, but I can't say. I mean, it certainly pitches up. I mean, you're right about the way you're observing it. It pitches up well above. So, even if it just matched, which is what Michael Rex's design tried to do, that would make a big difference. Or it could do a flat design, or, maybe it could slope up. But anything would help.
And is there something in that space? Or,
It's just 11-foot ceilings in storage and garage.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now it is time for the applicants to speak. After that, there will be any questions, and then there'll be a public comment period. Then the appellant has 3 minutes, 30 seconds, was reserved 3 minutes, 30 seconds for rebuttal, and the applicant will have a 3-minute rebuttal.
Great. Okay. Will that go full screen? Yeah. Good evening. My name is Ann Farrell, and I'm here representing Courtney and Vasily Moratov. So just to reiterate, this here is 4 Ellswood. There are only 2, this is a private road, entirely private. There are no pedestrians except for people who live here. There are no bicyclists, there's nothing. This road here is only shared by 2 other residences. We're not talking about a lot of traffic, quite honestly. And as you know, that house right there, these houses up here are significantly up the hill and they come up their driveways this way. Oh, I'm sorry, didn't mean to do that. Did I do that? There we go. Anyway, moving ahead. This picture shows from down below. That right there is 4 Ellswood. You can see how steep this neighborhood is. This is a tremendously steep neighborhood. The houses are significantly vertically above each other on here, and they all have panoramic views. So again, we've talked about it. This over here, that's the deeded parking for this property. That's the way this house was designed. There's no other parking available. This was approved as that is the parking. And as we've said, the proposal is to go directly above this. This is actually not a very big parking area. It's less than 20 feet wide. It's less than 20 feet deep. There is no other storage. There's nothing. This is it. They have to walk down about 8 feet vertical to get into their house. And even on the first level, there's no storage as well. They have a utility room that they use for it. Garages. I want to be clear. Every house has a garage, and every house has a big garage. So if you look at this picture, for example, number 6 Owlswood, which is the next one down the street, it's 565 feet, the garage. As I said on here, all the dimensions you can see, 20 feet, 21 feet, 23 foot, 22 foot. This one here, 2-car garage with parking with storage on the side. Number 5 Owlswood, this is actually like the house is over here. This is a whole annex with the garage there. And as we said, number 7 Owlswood, which is currently under construction to make it into a whopping 760 square foot garage. So clearly people appreciate garages. They understand the point. It's not just about parking. It is about storage. We have detritus as part of life, strollers, bicycles, refrigerators, exercise machines. As seen on this one, number 6, this is the house directly next to the subject property. This is their garage. Look, they have windows in their garage. They have exercise equipment in their garage. We understand why people have garages with extra spaces, and certainly windows are not unusual to have in a garage. I also would like to say that there is no standard for what a size of a garage is. There's nothing that says it has to be 20 by 20. We have heard from Dina, the town allows up to 600 square feet for a garage. The neighbor has a 760 square foot garage. You know, it's ridiculous to say that if you have an area that has a wood floor, by the way, that is not a hardwood floor, it is a construction technique. I'm happy to answer why we did that. It doesn't mean that that's a use that is not part of a garage use. So as far as layout on the site, again, as we said, it's directly over this. The house has an existing setback variance. We're not changing that. We're doing a little bit to the side. And I also want to point out that this is an easement that continues down the street in front of number 6 Owlswood Road. So to argue that nobody is ever supposed to drive down there, that's part of the public easement as well. So architecturally speaking, I want to talk, there's been a lot of talk about this. Okay, so intentionally, we tried to keep this as nominal as possible. This is a 7-foot garage door. There's a foot for the garage door housing. There's the structure for the roof. And then there's a 2 and 12 slope up to the back of the garage. It's not 11 feet for the whole part of it. It's only 11 feet at the tallest part. And that is basically determined by the 2 and 12 slope, which is the minimum you can have to have shingle roof siding on it. We had earlier had a request from the neighbors asking that we had shingle roofing that matched the house. That is what we need, 2 and 12 slope to get a shingle roof. Of course, we can go below a 2 and 12 if you want to go to a monolithic torch down roof membrane, which looks really pretty bad, let's be honest. So again, we've got this over here. It's 3'10" above the existing eave. If you look here, not that much. Keep in mind, this here is below the wall of this building right here is only 7 feet, and the roof eaves come beyond. Now, I do want to talk about architecture because it's really important. This house here, as you can see, it's a really simple, modern little building. It is the only sole characteristic of this house is this unique monoslope roof that it has. It's got a monoslope roof that comes down with very defined eaves. They are projecting eaves of 18 inches at least, and they are tapered like the fin of an airplane or a wing. That is the feature. I'm not sure why it's advancing when I'm not touching anything, but that is the feature of the house. And it's important to note that that is the characteristic of the house. So the design that we proposed actually is working with the design of the existing house to try and emulate that. Again, a very simple monoslope roof. So it's important to note that we did consider alternatives. There's a huge amount of site, as you can see, beyond the house down the street. So like we looked at putting something down here. We looked at putting an attached structure right here. We also considered whether or not these would be ADUs. My clients need storage almost more than they need parking. So it is a possibility that they could put these in as ADUs. They are fully aware that there is a 16-foot height limit for the ADUs, and we could do that without any conversation at all. Sounds pretty appealing. But we looked at it and we realized that where we were proposing it was actually a kinder situation for the views of the neighborhood. It was a more respectful solution and it met my client's needs. So this was good. Now on the other side of the project, yes, I've seen what they proposed. We considered this as well. This is not a good location. There's so many reasons. This increases the variances from 2 to 3, requires a modification to the roadway easement. It creates a situation where it's within 2 feet of the property line, causes my clients to have to close 2 windows in their living room, and we know for a fact that it would be appealed by the neighbors who are on the other side. This is not a good location. I could go on and on about this, and I hope you ask me questions if you want. This is not a good location, but we did consider it. So in essence, I spent 4 years at Berkeley and 2.5 years in graduate school at Harvard Architecture School. And it's really important to understand the context and to respect clean, simple lines and to listen to what the context is and the scale. This, sorry, I'm not touching anything, but this design does that. It is really not that significant. When we say it's 11 feet at the back, again, look at it. It's only 11 feet at the very back. That's 20 feet away from the front of the building. Okay. So thank you. Sorry about that. I'm not touching anything, I swear. All right. Moving right along, view obstruction. Okay, so I want to point out that this is number 5 Owlswood. If you see right down here, that's number 5 Owlswood. If you'll see, it is oriented up, down along a longitudinal axis where the views are right behind it, right there, Mount Tam, right? That is the orientation of this house. Oh gosh, please go back, or I don't know what's going on here. But this here, that's a study. The living room and dining room and kitchen are on the other side of it. This is an exterior deck that was added 10 years ago. So if you look down this view, that's not a primary view. That is not the definition of a primary view. I don't know where they're taking that picture, but I think it's like looking over the bushes at the corner of that. Number 6 Ellswood, the house next down the street. As you can see from this picture, you can't see any windows at all, and it's 60 feet away. So it's 60 feet away, and there are no windows at all facing this. So they cannot argue that there's any lost primary views. Above it, number 7 and 9 Owlswood are significantly up the hill. The picture on the right is the picture they submitted to the DRB to show their view obstruction, right? It's very clear that these houses have panoramic views, as I will show you in the next picture. This one. So for example, number 7 Ellswood, this is taken from Zillow. You can see in this picture, it has panoramic views from San Francisco to Mount Tam. And if you look directly out of it, you're not looking down. There's a deck off to the right. This picture that they've submitted on the side, that's been significantly zoomed in, cropped, and is probably taken from outside the house. I mean, I'm almost certain of it, never having been there. But that is not a primary view. There's nothing that says that you can't see anything that's going on. The next one here, I'm just trying to show, oops, I think, did it go two? So the next one here, this
So sorry, but you're out of time.
I'm sorry, you know, I'm
We
so
have to keep-
distracted. I'm not sure what's going on with the
I know,
advancing.
but I have to keep to the time. If you could,
Wrap up. Can I just 2 seconds? So listen, I just want to say we have worked very hard. Panoramic views do not say you can have no view obstruction. And I want to say that we have unanimous support by the DRB. We have support by this for the design we have for you today. That's what we're looking at. Thank you.
thank you. I am going to give the other side 30 seconds more, but thank you.
Was anybody else having that problem with the advancing?
Are there any questions from the council? I'm not seeing any. Okay, thank you. So right now, there is a public comment period.
Do you have questions?
I don't believe there are questions. I did not hear any. Okay. There's a public comment period now. Is there any public comment? Please come forward.
Thank you.
I represent the neighbor to the north that got thrown under the bus by the proposed other garage. My name's Charlie Morris. I and my wife Andrea live at 943 Ellswood Lane that you don't see in those pictures, but we're right next to them. We wanted to let you guys know that we oppose the alternative plans submitted by the Odlands and neighbors for a garage between the Moratoffs and us. The original design for the Moratoff home by then owner Gordon Cousins 20 years ago was at the eastern side of the property, but due to their opposition over their special views, the house was moved 30 feet closer to us, encroaching the setback and at the expense of a good portion of our view of San Francisco, the Bay, and Angel Island from our kitchen and living room. We were a young family at the time, 3 little children, and we didn't have the means or expertise to argue. We only just found out about this new proposal to move the garage between our properties, which was kind of like that ambush reminiscent of the prior experience. What also resulted from the neighbors demanding the house be shifted toward our property was a loss of privacy between our central living room and theirs, the Gordon Cousins, which are now the Moratoffs. And he was an architect, built a beautiful house, but he did not intend that his primary bedroom and dining room would look directly into our central living area, which they do. That is why the large oak trees that are necessary on the side of their house for privacy, that they propose to take down to build this garage. These neighbors seem to demand that all the views they have in every direction, even from the road, even down the hill, be considered their primary and sacrosanct views. Once again, they ignore and dismiss our right to views and privacy with architectural plans that seem to act as if we don't even exist. A garage between our properties would result in more frequent and even brighter headlights in our kitchen, living room, downstairs living area, and the property.
The project would kill the protected oaks that give some privacy and beauty between our two homes. And a busy garage would cause frequent and significant noise disruption in our primary living areas. There may also be significant impact to the integrity of that steep hillside by further excavation and tree removal when a suitable, stable platform already exists and has been approved by the DRV in a 5-0 vote. Once again, these neighbors would like to shift the burden to us with this north proposal. So their appeal seems an obfuscation and manipulation of the facts to get what they want. And Andre and I have to fight against our architects and attorneys, it seems again, but we thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Is there any more public comments? Anyone online?
Seeing none.
Okay, it is now time for rebuttal. The appellant has 4 minutes of rebuttal. They reserved 30 seconds and I gave the applicant 30 seconds more, so I have to do equal time.
Thank you very much. I just want to respond to some of the comments, particularly the panoramic views, that these neighbors all have panoramic views. As I stated before, the Oddlands do not. They have one view of the city and the lagoon, and I would say this is at least a third to half of that view being taken away from them. And so I just don't think it's fair to say their view is Mount Tam and anybody would value and want the city and the lagoon view, and they certainly do. There was also a statement that there was a picture shown and they said, these are the views that they submitted in support in the design review board hearing. They did not submit those pictures. And we've been very candid that there are two properties with primary locations of views. The other people have different concerns. All of them share the sadness about losing this special feature of their neighborhood from the intersection. There was a lot of time spent about other folks having garages, and I just want to say again, the appellants all support them having a garage and storage, and that's reasonable. It really is just about the design and whether the storage and 11-foot ceilings in a garage and storage area should really take away views. It's just not reasonable, and it certainly isn't contemplated by the design review guidelines. They said the existing setback variance, this is just the same. It isn't, because this is at the street level. It has a different impact than what's down below, and staff made that recognition and said it needs a front yard setback variance. So with that front yard setback variance, you have to make new findings and say it does not harm neighbors. And in this case, you can't do that. If you had it below grade, sure, that doesn't harm anybody. But once you place it above grade, you have to make a finding it doesn't harm neighbors. And it's a legal requirement and it can't be made in this case. You asked, and I was wrong. I said 3 to 4 feet, and it's my client said, no, it's 4 feet. I think I saw on the applicant's property, 3 feet, 11 inches. So that's how much it rises above. And for what benefit? Because they have a design preference. And again, compromise is oftentimes needed when we have, view impacts. And in this case, it's a really reasonable request. They acknowledge that they can go smaller, but they, really say that this design is the end all be all. No offense to the architect, but this is not like a Gaudi design. This is simply a shed roof that pitches upward. And I think other things could meet their needs and not take away views and should be considered. The ADU nuclear option, I just would encourage council not to be, swayed by that. You have zoning regulations, you have to use them. Just because someone can build an ADU and put it wherever they want and, tick off everybody in the neighborhood, that should not be considered. The increase of the variances from 2 to 3 because closer to the setback on the north side, yeah, but no harm to the neighbors. Again, the Morrises are 60 feet away, they're one lot adjacent. And I just want to point out that the Oddlands view is uniquely impacted. And of course, anybody would want that Bird Island view. It's beautiful. So we again ask you to reconsider this decision. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. So right now, I will see if staff has a summary or not. Oh, sorry.
Applicants have a rebuttal now.
Sorry, please. Applicants, you have your rebuttal. Sorry about that.
I won't touch any devices, so hopefully this time it will be good. All right, I'm going to read something this time. I grew up in Tiburon. I live in the house I was born in. My father was the Tiburon town engineer, and my mother was the chairman of the Reed Union School District Board. I am deeply committed to this community. When Courtney and Vasily asked me at the dog park if I could help them with a little garage addition, I thought it would be a small, fun task to fill in amongst my other projects. Clearly, I was very naive. I did not expect this kind of pushback. I worked on the assumption that if we followed the rules, worked with the town staff, and were reasonable and fair, everything would go smoothly. We realized while reviewing the massive volume of appellants' late mail and submissions that we're up against a highly organized and well-funded effort to delay or obstruct our project at any cost. Hundreds of hours are being spent to amplify irrelevant information. The story polls are not wrong. Make mountains out of molehills, put forth over a dozen unreasonable legal arguments to try and manufacture uncertainty where none exists, and to use misinformation, both verbal and photographic. That photo was absolutely in one of the letters submitted. To try and manipulate decision makers. We, using a traffic expert who's not a licensed engineer of any sort. This is unreasonable. I don't think anybody should be forced to spend this amount of time and money to respond to the output generated by appellant's large team of consultants and lawyers. We know one of the neighbors is going to fight their proposed location. Why are we even talking about this? This is a simple garage. We have been actively in discussion with the appellants, the architect, and lawyers, and have irreconcilable differences on design. Unless Vasily and Courtney cede control and allow the appellant's architect to dictate the design of the home, we cannot get on the same page. With so much invested in their home, giving up design control to appellants is a line that my clients are just not willing to take. And I just have to reiterate, we already have compromised in the design. I considered these things. I did. And I think that, we tried to design something that would have the minimum impact and would be contextual. This is not a huge garage. I also need to emphasize, this was unanimously approved, 5-0 by the DRB. There was barely any discussion about it. They visited the site. They looked at the alternative locations. They concluded this was a reasonable project. So did staff. This project does not affect any protected views or cause any safety issues, which is why it was approved 5-0. I really hope that you support the DRB and the planning staff and our employees who have worked so hard and so diligently on this application and allow us to move forward with this project that's taken 6 months to get here.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so now it is in the hands of the town council.
Mayor, if you may, will you please close the public hearing?
I am going to now close the public hearing, and I will ask staff if there's any summary or anything they want to do.
No, but we are certainly available here, or I am certainly available to answer any questions.
Okay, so there's okay. Councilmember Fredericks would like to start. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me start. And rather than protected views, I would like to make a few comments about cherished views. From one of the houses, there is a panoramic view, but there is a very specific view at that kitchen dining room conjunction, which is part of the primary view. It's the whole long set of windows. And what is blocked is what is sometimes referred to as a monument, which is an identifiable feature of the view. And in the larger context, that is one of the things that's considered about whether to determine whether the view blockage is reasonable. 5 Owlswood, their cherished view is from the outdoor covered living space, what is the primary space? Is it where you spend the most time? At the time that I was on the planning commission, and I don't know why this came up, I was never on the DRB, but somebody tried to make an argument that because they spend a lot of time at their kitchen sink, that was actually their primary view. So the idea of where you spend all your time is not necessarily controlling when you're trying to make these very hard, rational decisions. These are cherished views. I really recognize that. But it isn't clear to me that they are protected views. I agree with the DRB, very sadly. The concern about safety is more of a concern to me. I drove up and down that road, and even though once in a while I did like carnival rides, this one was really scary, and turning around is really a challenge. And I was there twice, and neither time were the other cars parked on the road. And I can't imagine what the line of sight would be like as the applicant pulls out of their driveway and someone is coming down the road. It is a concern. I know that it is presumably addressed by the windows. It's a very difficult situation. And what we've got here is design preference versus these cherished, not clearly protected views. There was a comment, and I don't know how to follow up on it, both in the site visit and here at the meeting, that if the highest side of the proposed garage was on the street side, it would have less of an impact on these cherished views. Now, I know that the architect is probably getting creepy crawlies at the idea of tampering with design elements like this. But for the rest of us, I think it seems if it makes it easier for people to keep their cherished views, it really ought to be weighed and considered. And those are my comments.
Thank you. So I would much rather get yelled at by the Parks and Open Space parents than do these appeals, because it is inevitably the case that I go and I talk to everybody and I agree with everything, or 80% of what everyone says, that they're all reasonable people. And obviously one of the biggest frustrations is when neighbors can't come to even the point where they can meet and create consensus. But that being said, in this particular case, when I think about an appeal, I have to, I visited the properties and I'm trying to establish in my mind, did the design review board do anything that was flawed? And so I watched that meeting as well. And I simply just can't get to the place where I think they did anything wrong. It was a 5-0 decision. They discussed and they analyzed the project very thoroughly. Commissioner Kim went to the properties that are now appealing, and she said it was the least material view obstruction she'd ever seen. And that's why we have the DRB. We don't go to all the properties and see all of the things that come in front of DRB. We don't. They do. So when she says something like that, that's much more impactful than my context that I have, which is once every couple times a year, I'm able to say, oh, I saw this or I saw that. She sees them all, and this she characterized as being the least material view obstruction she's ever seen. So that holds a lot of weight with me. I just can't get to the point where I think the DRB did anything wrong, and I can't see how I could uphold this appeal. I'm sorry.
You don't want to go. Okay. Okay. So I have a little bit of a different viewpoint here. I wish, we don't like appeals because we have to decide and someone's going to get upset, right? We have to make a decision and we can't not do that. And also the reason we don't like it is because we like to see our neighbors getting along. So I have a very different perspective on this appeal. I believe that the garage is a garage. the fact that it is sloping up and higher than the actual property, I think is what the neighbors are objecting to. I do think that they're not objecting to a garage. I do not think that the design is in keeping with the hillside design guidelines. I do think the views are very important. I do believe they are probably protected. I did go and walk around the outside of all these places. So I would actually, vote to grant the appeal and deny the application. But I would really like to see the neighbors meet about the new designs that were presented this evening by the appellant, and just see if there's any way to come to agreement, because, it is a garage. It is not, it's not like you're building a brand new house. These are all existing houses, and we could probably debate, whether a view is protected or not. I think it is. You may think it's not, but I think it's really important to realize that you're living in a neighborhood and you're building a garage in an existing neighborhood that's been there for 50 years. So for those reasons, I do think we can make the findings to grant the appeal and deny the application.
I have a question of staff.
And I would make that motion.
May I ask a question of staff first? What if this ends up being a 2-2? What is the disposition of the decision?
The appeal is denied under our municipal code.
By the way, for what it's worth, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I feel like denying the appeal is a better path in terms of the negotiation going forward between them. I think if we grant the appeal, that's a hard stop on the project. Whereas if we deny the appeal and then the neighbors can subsequently negotiate, the appellants will have to satisfy all of the applicants' conditions of use what the use they're looking to get out of the space. So that's where I would go on that. But
I mean,
hear
I
you.
don't agree with that. 'Cause
Yeah.
if we deny the appeal, the decision stands. And I'm not disrespecting any of our commissions or our staff. I just think that it's a garage. It's storage space or design preference. But whether you locate it, wherever you locate it, why would you block neighbors' views? I don't think that that's good. I think the way that it slopes up. And I also think that that it's not in keeping with the hillside design guidelines. You would never put something up higher than the structure on a slope. So I will make the motion that we grant the appeal, deny the application, and direct staff to return with an appropriate resolution for adoption at the next meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Could we please call the roll?
Councilmember Fredericks,
I vote yes, mostly because I think there's a solution.
Councilmember Nicobar,
No.
Councilmember Ryan,
No.
Vice Mayor Wellner is absent, and Mayor Thier.
Yes.
So if it's 2-2, obviously we could vote to deny the appeal, but it would be 2-2. So
Yeah.
we need to do any of
If
that.
someone wants to try another motion to see if there's a consensus of 3, you can try that, or we can move
I
on.
move that we deny the
Bring a
appeal.
motion back at the next, a resolution back at the next agenda, denying the appeal because of the 2-2.
Can I say that last part again?
We bring a resolution back at our next meeting denying the appeal based on the vote.
All right. So we don't need to make another motion.
You do not, unless you want to try to find a third vote somehow with some other motion.
I don't.
Hearing no further motions. Is that correct, Mayor?
Um, I don't think there's another motion. Yeah,
We can move on.
because what other motion could we make?
I mean, I can make a motion that we deny the appeal and we can have a vote.
Second.
It's already denied, right?
We just,
It's already denied. You don't need your.
What I
vote.
meant was you could partially grant the appeal if there's some conditions you wanted
I
to,
see.
what, like we did with the
Okay,
landmarks
well,
last
We
meeting.
could, we could try that. I mean, I would partially grant the appeal and request that that they discuss the drawings that were presented in addition to lowering the height of the garage roof.
Or changing the
So that
pitch.
changing the pitch so that it doesn't actually block the views. Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay.
Councilmember Fredericks,
yes.
Councilmember Nickfar,
no.
Councilmember Ryan,
No.
Vice Mayor Wellner is absent, and Mayor Thier.
Yes. Okay. I think that that concludes this item and it actually concludes our meeting. So we are.
There, we have several other items.
No, we're done. We're done. Are you?
The wildfire maps and the vacancy
Okay,
report.
okay, sorry. Yep. Okay, we will do,
No.
we will now move on to,
To continue it. I can get on that.
Public hearing 3, Madam Mayor.
yes, public hearing 3.
Okay.
Great.
I'll make this very brief. On September 22nd, 2024, Governor Newsom signed Assembly Bill 2561. And pursuant to that bill, it mandates public agencies must present the status of their staff vacancies and recruitment and retention efforts in a public hearing at least once per fiscal year. The presentation must be made prior to the approval of the annual budget and must identify any necessary changes to policies, procedures, and recruitment activities that may lead to obstacles in the hiring process during the hearing. Recognized labor organizations must be allowed to make a presentation at the hearing for positions within their bargaining unit. In years with vacancy rates that exceed 20% in a particular bargaining unit, the agency must, upon the request of the labor organization, include in the report a number of items. In all cases, the public agency must provide advance written notice of the agency's presentation of the information to all recognized labor organizations and an opportunity for the labor organization to respond. The town has currently 1 vacancy in an unrepresented position as of June 1st, 2025. The current number of vacancies equals 2.3% of the town's 43 approved positions, which is well below the 20% threshold set by law. The town has 2 recognized bargaining units. Vacancies by bargaining units, total positions per bargaining unit, and percent of vacancies are as follows. The TPOA has 0 vacancies, which is 0% of the total members. Service employee unions has 0 vacancies, which is 0% as well. Neither of the 2 bargaining units has a vacancy percentage that exceeds 20%, and there have been no policy or procedural changes that impact the hiring or retention process. Both bargaining units were invited to make a presentation at tonight's meeting and declined. That completes
Okay.
my staff report.
And we're voting on this matter.
Public comment first,
Public comment.
Seeing none.
and then a motion to accept the report.
So I move to accept the report. Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, please call the roll.
Councilmember Fredericks, Councilmember Nickfar,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellner is absent, and Mayor Thier.
Yes. We are now moving to local responsibility area wildfire maps.
I have a quick question. Is there anyone online right now?
No.
Yes.
Thank you. Just curious.
Isaac. Okay. Moving to local responsibility area wildfire maps. Do we have a report?
Very quick. California Government Code, Section 51179, subsection A, mandates that local agencies defined as a city, county, or district responsible for fire protection within a very high fire hazard severity zone shall designate by ordinance moderate, high, and very high fire hazard severity zones in their jurisdiction within 120 days of receiving recommendations from the state fire marshal. So this item involves consideration of an ordinance, which is Exhibit 1 to your staff report, to designate fire hazard severity zones in a local responsibility area and incorporate by reference the Tiburon LRA Fire Hazard Severity Zone map as published, which is Exhibit 2. Okay, let's see here. So CAL FIRE developed the map, which is Exhibit 2, to this, and it reflects. It's important to note that these zone maps reflect hazard, not risk. So the distinction, and the town attorney maybe be able to help me here, is it's not the necessarily higher risk of fire. It's that if a fire occurred, it could be more hazardous. So it's like a flood zone map in that regard. These maps were created by CAL FIRE under the direction of the state fire marshal without local jurisdictional input. Pursuant to the government code, a local agency shall not decrease the level of fire hazard severity zones as identified, but they may increase it. Tiburon is served by 2 separate independent fire districts that combined are responsible for fire protection in the vast majority of incorporated Tiburon. The only exception to this is Angel Island, which is within the incorporated boundaries of Tiburon, but is not included in the boundaries of either fire district. It is also the only area identified in the state recommended Tiburon LRA map that is considered high or very high severity zones. So tonight, we are asking council to adopt this map pursuant to the government code. We'll hold a public hearing and then adopt by ordinance, read by title only, waiving further readings, and schedule the ordinance for adoption in the next regular meeting.
Okay, so moved.
Oh, public comment first.
Public comment? And then your question.
Seeing none.
Okay, go ahead, Councilmember Frederick.
Oh, great, Councilmember. So I noticed on these that there's a whole large grayish zone, which I guess is state responsibility area because it's county. And it was really hard because of whatever they gave as the key to the colors and the risk area to know what that was about. I've already asked, and I hope we can all get some copies of the state responsibility areas that cover Tiburon. I think it gives us a better idea of what the official evaluation of our wildfire maps are.
Okay, thank you. Would someone like to make the I'll move the item.
Oh, on the question. So the gray areas that I believe Councilmember Fredericks is referencing that are in incorporated Tiburon
Yes.
are gray because they're not considered even moderately dangerous. They're gray because they're not considered high, at all in terms of the fire danger.
The gray on here says unzoned LRA. That's what's on the key here. So it looks like on the map that all the gray area is unzoned LRA.
Right. So that's unzoned local responsibility area, which in all those gray areas are covered by either one of our fire districts.
Okay, thank you. I thought some of it was state,
Nope.
but it's not. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready for a motion? Or do we have more questions? Okay, so moved.
So,
And just to clarify, your move is to introduce the ordinance, read by title only, waive further readings, and schedule the ordinance for adoption at the next regular meeting.
Yes, that's what I said.
Second.
Okay, let's call the roll.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Yes.
Councilmember Nickvar.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellner is absent and Mayor Thier.
Yes.
And Mayor,
Yes.
I know you thought that was the last item, but the very last item is the Caltrans item.
That was continued.
It has to be continued by a vote of the council.
Okay, so
after public
let's
comment.
have a vote.
Move to continue.
Second. Public comment?
Seeing none. And ready for the vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Yes.
Councilmember Nickvar.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Second, yes.
Vice Mayor Wellner is absent.
What does that mean?
And Mayor Thier.
Yes.
It means the devil made him do it.
Yes.
A little bit reluctant.
Now we are adjourned.